Hey
Beauty.
everybody, it's Bob here, and welcome to another episode of the cast. And we've got a good one here for you this afternoon. We always try to bring interesting people on, whether it's fishing pros or brand managers or company owners. In this case, we've got Aaron Anders of Tungsten with us. Aaron, thanks for coming. I
Yeah,
appreciate having you here.
I'm pumped to be here. It's I had a chance to chat a couple weeks ago, and we had a hard time keeping that one on time. So let's see where we get with today. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm pumped to talk to you and see you.
Yeah, so hang around, everybody. We're going to talk about how Aaron grew his company so damn fast, how he's working with his pro staff, and how he started, and all that kind of good stuff, and the origin of the name. We're gonna have some fun here for a little bit. So first of all, Aaron, let me just what I do is I call it the level set here. So you're born in you're from Canada, right? And that's where you grew up, and that's kind of where you started fishing, correct?
Yeah,
Tell us about
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up north of the border. My dad loved to fish, and I grew up fishing. And I say that like it probably started off more as a way to get me and my sister out of the house, to give my mom some space on a Sunday. And then it was this addiction, and it's been so much fun. It's been such a big part of my life since I can remember. And then I found tournament fishing, and then it was like this whole next level. It was like the fact that is the way to combine fishing and sports and all those other things that I'd been doing for so long. And then at that point it was on. It was it was a full-blown addiction. I was hooked, and I never looked back. And it's been an awesome part of my life, and I never want to change that.
Do you remember like the earliest memory, like you caught a crappie or a walleye?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. It's funny. So I had two that like flashed in front of me. I remember catching what I thought was a rainbow fish, which was, now that I think it was probably like a pumpkin seed, with my dad out of some river.
Yeah.
And then I remember there's a tiny little lake in the town that I grew up in, and my grandpa took me out, and we had this bucket, and we just filled it with little bluegill, and then just played with it all day. I just remember thinking about that the whole time. It's one of the first things that I remember is filling that bucket with my grandpa with bluegill. It's crazy to think back at that now, actually.
Yeah, when you can get a bucket and get a mess of them, it's just a ton of fun, especially for a kid, and that's what usually gets them totally turned on to our sport. So yeah. Hey, I got to show you something, and I showed this to Jeff Gustafson, when I was talking to him, and I'm a hockey player, right? And one of our team sponsors. Here, I got to turn this. If you can see this, right?
That is a thing of pure beauty.
Isn't this freaking awesome, right?
That is amazing.
So, this is a tribute to our guys north of the border. So I'm with you. I got a 12-pack of Labatt's in my garage as we speak.
That's amazing. Well, yeah. I fished a Bass Open. Gosh, I don't know what that was, like 10 years ago, a long time ago now, I guess. But in Oneida, and I remember being like, I don't know how this thing's going to be. Practice kind of stunk. We changed hotels, and right beside the hotel was a Tim Hortons.
Oh yeah.
And inside the gas station beside it, they had Labatt Blue.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what? I hit a gas station, and I'm like, you know what? This thing might work out pretty well. I ended up finishing 5th. So I'm like, it was the signs from the universe that like, hey, like you're okay. You're where you're supposed to be, kind of thing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So I know you're pretty competitive, right? So how tell me where that came from? Is that your dad or mom, or where did you get that from?
I don't know. It's I don't know. I always played sports growing up. I hate to lose. I just hate it. I think that, and that's I always played a lot of individual sports too growing up. I mean, obviously hockey. I mean, that was a big part of my world. But I played a ton of golf. I played a ton of stuff like that where it was me. So I'm competitive against me as much as I am others. And I think for me, that's always just been a piece of it. I don't like to lose. I don't like to not play at my best, and it becomes that almost that thing, which to me, business, it's funny we talk about business, but it's like not much different than fishing. It's the most losing sport in the world, right? Like it's like there's always a way to get better. There's always someone who figures it out. Every once in a while you kind of put a few things together, but then it's never complete, right? It's never done. And I think that's part of why I love it so much too, is that you can always get better and always keep playing with it.
It'd be interesting is, in baseball, the 300 hitters go into the Hall of Fame, right? So if there's a way you could actually calculate casts versus,
Wow.
fish landed, that would blow my mind, right?
Me too.
How do you do that? I don't know.
I don't know. I did something a while ago, a long time ago now, but I was trying to figure out like how often someone win. And I started going through all the elite series and profiles. And this was, I don't know, again, a decade ago, but you go through them all. It's got, tournaments, fished in, number of top tens, first, second, and thirds, classic appearances, the whole thing. And by far, the biggest winning percentage, like by far, was Kevin Van Dam, and he was just over 8%. And then the next closest was like 1.8% winning percentage, right? So it's kind of a phenomenal thing to think about. Again, he was like at that point, right? That had that much of a gap, but yeah, like 2% winning percentage for elite series angler is like all time.
Yeah, kind of like the Tiger Woods of fishing, right? Exactly. I know he just won another one recently.
I saw that,
too. Yeah.
I saw that, yeah.
Continuing to do it, over and over.
Yeah, no doubt.
So let me ask you, who did you look up to? Who did you really follow as you were kind of growing up and getting into the sport of fishing?
Well, I mean, I grew up fishing with my dad. I mean, I had a really interesting, I'll say, like relationship with like fishing and my dad, because we learned a lot together. Like we got our first boat when I was like 12. So we bank fished together, and it was fun to go out, but like it was his first boat too. And there was like this really cool, like we kind of learned a lot of things together, which I thought was, I mean, I didn't realize it maybe in the moment, but that was a really cool thing. And I think for me, like when I was about 13 or 14, the Bass University came to Toronto, Ontario. And I remember, so it was the year Davey Height won Angler of the Year. And so you're seeing him. So it's Davey Height, Kevin Van Dam, and then some local guys like Rocky Crawford and some of the bigger names from around here as well. So I mean, I'll always remember. I have a picture of Kevin Van Dam, and I'm like this. It's like February. You've got like the pail, like you haven't seen a lick of sun and who knows how long. And Kevin Van Dam, gosh, that was like, he's probably in his like late 20s type thing, and I'm like 13, and it was one of those things. So I looked up to all those guys because I thought it was so cool. I mean, when you're 13, you're just learning about working, right? I thought it was just so cool that these guys, their job was to fish, right? It was such a cool thing to me, and I was just starting to understand a lot about the fishing world and tournaments and work and like all those other things. So I followed the elites. Like I have every looking over at the shelf, I have every Bassmaster magazine that I've ever gotten since I was 16, since I could join, like all those guys. And just a ton of respect once I realized, especially as I got a little older, like 16, 17, 18, you're fishing a lot, like that it's not easy, and started to understand a lot more about what that side of things were, and that, it is work to fish for a living. And so I followed a lot of those guys for a long time, super, super close, which is why I think, being part of the business we're in now is very, very cool to me.
Right. And so in basketball and other sports, they call it a gym rat. Right.
Yeah.
So I'd call you a true lake rat, fishing rat.
Lake rat.
Yeah,
my dad made a joke the other day that, so we had a boat when I was about 17. We had a 17 and a half foot tracker with a 75 horse on it. And I think they got a smaller one to limit how far I could probably go, knowing that who knows where I'd end up. Right. So, but we saw one on the past one on the highway, and my dad was like, when you were like 17, you lived in that thing. And that's exactly what it was. It was hard to get in trouble when you got to be at the lake at 6 a.m. and you didn't get home until 9:30. It was fun. I loved it then. I love it now. I had two small boys. We went and caught a whole bunch of little perch the other day, and they're asking to go, can we go in on Saturday? Can we go this weekend? So we're starting again.
Oh yeah. Get ready for it, buddy. It's just happening.
Exactly.
So let me zoom ahead a little bit here. So you met who was now your partner, Chris, right? Mm-hmm. And so I believe that was in college. You were college roommates, or tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we met, we kind of like reconnected in college. So we met when we were younger. I was doing some kids tip of the week segments for some local fishing shows, some Canadian fishing shows, and they ran a contest, and they ran a junior. He won the juniors. So, our big like province or statewide spring fishing show in February, they had us both in the booth, and we're both whatever, 14, 15. So, what do you do when you're in a booth, bored out of your mind when you're 14, 15? You make friends, I guess, right? So we had a good time, and then it was wild. I went to college, and I literally saw him on campus, and I'm like, who is? I know that guy. Where do I know him from? Like, it was just, this is before everyone was so connected, right? I'm like, I hadn't seen him in 5 years or 6, whatever it was, and like, oh my god, like I put it together. So I went up and said, hey, like how are? And then again, it was just reconnected, and we were at a couple weeks later, we were at the same party type thing, and we literally just stood in the backyard and talked fishing for 3 hours until whatever time in the morning, and decided at that night that we were going to fish tournaments the next summer together, which was funny. And the first time we ever spent in the boat together was actually the first time we ever fished a tournament together. So I think that's one of the coolest parts about fishing, is that you can actually be like literally somebody you barely know,
right,
stuck 12 feet stuck 12 feet apart, like in the middle of the lake, and that's a good thing. So yeah, that's how we met and reconnected, and talk every day right now with business and everything else.
And Chris has unique profile. Would we say that? He's a broadcaster, right?
Yeah.
And he's down in Florida, right?
Yeah, so he's Florida. He lives in California now. So he just shifted over to California, and he's a broadcaster. Does a lot in entertainment, podcasting, loves to fish still. And so that's kind of his deal, is more on the media side of the world. And then we kind of have that mine's more on the business side of the world, and we kind of have this like overlap with fishing, which kind of became Woo Tungsten, I guess, eventually.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen that, you should look that up, because he's got some really interesting. He's interviewed some really interesting characters too. And
no doubt.
And it's Chris Van Vliet, right?
Yeah.
And it's VAN, second word VLIET. So if you guys want to look it up, go check him out. So now, then, at what point do you remember when the light bulb went off, when you two were saying we got to do this? Is that when the pike bit you off and you said, I got to do something, and I'm going to do it with Chris? Or how'd that happen?
He was living in Cleveland actually at that point, and I remember I was walking the dog. I remember exactly where it was, and we were we've been kind of going back and forth a little bit, and we flipped deep grass here a lot. That's a normal thing, like just big milfoil beds, and we had a lot of pike up here, and it was 5-6 years ago now, I guess. But tungsten was just starting to become a thing. And it'd been around for a while, but I mean, it was more readily available, and it wasn't, there's just more sizes and stuff. And I remember flipping tungsten for the first time, being like, whoa, that's different. And so for me, like, it was just such a huge difference, but we get bit off. I probably, you feel the thump and you lean into it, and there's like nothing there, because they're just, they're just toothy critters, and it was off. So, after going through like $100 in tungsten, you have a good day on the water, and you go through like a couple bags of whatever bait you're flipping, you're like, I kind of went through a couple bags. It hurt to go through a couple packs of tungsten weights.
Yeah,
different. It was a little different. So after doing that, I was like, there's gotta be an alternative. So we just started looking at it, and we found a couple manufacturers and found a few different things. And then I was walking. Honestly, I remember exactly where I was walking the dog, and I sent him an email, not a text message. I don't know why. So we have the email, and the email says, I think we could start this. And he wrote back, let's do it. And so we have that email kind of flagged, and it was about August, I guess. It was August of end of July, beginning August of 2016. And then the company became a reality in November. But we started all our social first. We started the social, and we thought, hey, look, like, we got all of our sample products, and we had to have 1,000 piece minimum. And we're like, oh man, like, if this doesn't go, I guess at least I'll have tungsten for the rest of my life, right? Like, it's not going to go moldy. But we started our social first, and we built a bit of a community, and then we introduced the product. And we're one of our biggest pieces of pride is that since our site opened, we haven't had a single day where we haven't had somebody buy from us, and so that's been a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's cool. And so all right, I mentioned earlier when we started the origin of the name.
Yeah, so we kicked it around, honestly, for a while, and then we had so many just terrible names. When I think about like, gosh, I wish we had that list, but we thought we'd sell to like really big tungsten weights in Florida, and we were thinking call it like gator tooth tungsten, or a whole bunch of just random
Right.
stuff. And then we were looking at the periodic table, and a tungsten's periodic table element resembles a W. So we thought, well, we should do something with a W. And so we thought woo. So we're like, woo will be good, right? And I was thinking WU, like, higher end, overseas product type thing, higher end tungsten, higher end product. And he thought woo, like
Woo!
when you catch a big fish, right? So I'm like, that's better.
Yeah.
That's better. And as we talked about it for the next whatever that was, however many weeks, like, just we couldn't shake woo. It just didn't shake, right? Some of the other ones were like, it's stuck, and we were like, well, then let's roll with it. So I'm glad we did.
You know what though? I think that it's a fun name, right? So woo, right? It's just something that everybody says. And so I think that the funness, if that's a word, of that name shows in the way you run your company.
Yeah.
Right. And the way you handle pro staff, and you just, with all your social, you're having a lot of fun. I think that's the big thing that I see. Yes.
No doubt. I if it wasn't fun, I'd just go buy tungsten if that was, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's fun. Again, we go back to like being competitive and like being a gym rat. It's the same for me now. I mean, my wife is a big part of what we do as well. We're sitting, like, literally put our kids to bed and we're laptops open, sitting on our back deck, but we're laptops open last night doing retail work until 10:30, right? So that's not necessarily fun, but running the business is fun. It's just like fishing. I think of it like fishing. Like, not every day on the water is fun. Not every minute of even a great day is fun, but there's a lot of really cool parts of it. So as a whole, we love to do it. And I think, like, that's a big piece of it. We love our pro staff. We love working with them. We love to be on the water. We're anglers. And as I said, this is not, this is not something that we just do because we got to just churn through it. It's something that we genuinely enjoy doing.
Well, I know the concept, Aaron. I know that what you're talking about, because people ask me from time to time, "Oh, you have to work today? Are you working?" And I kind of, well, I don't. If you call, talking fishing and selling fishing gear and doing things like that, then I guess I'm working. But really, I don't feel that what I do is, quote, work. Like, I used to be in the software business, right? That was work. You had to go someplace and do a meeting and, all that kind of stuff. And that's not to say that, you have meetings and what we do and there are goals and things that you have to get accomplished, but it just doesn't feel like work.
It's not the same, right? It's not the same. Like, you say, again, take an elite series angler, or they're driving 50 miles or 50,000 miles a year. Like, it's just, crazy. There's all sort of, like, being out in 6-7 footers. Like, talking about one of our guys like Seth, like, he had the electronics ripped off the front of his boat at Champlain. You know what I mean? Like, that's the, I don't know, like, but take that for what it is. I think there's, it's not work. Work is, to me, something that you have to do. And I feel very privileged and to go get to do this, right? Like, when I think about, when we talk about athletes or what, all those other things, like, they like to play the game, right? Like, they like to play the game. So that's part of, I think, what business and fishing is for me. So that's why it works.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, Aaron not only runs Woo, but he also has a, quote, a job. Right? Job in Canada where he runs college pro.
Yeah. And
so pretty much 9 to 5 for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes more, right? Like, I think it's like, I'll call it a lifestyle, right? Like, it's one of those things where I have so much flexibility, but I also have so much responsibility because of that. And so I run a home servicing business, a nationwide home servicing company. We do 25,000 customers. We're in the peak of our busiest season right now. And we're probably 1,000 employees, and I oversee that business for the country. But there's just lots. Like, as I said, it's like, you've got, let's say someone who plays in the NHL, they golf in the summer too, right? Like, if you're active, you're active, right? Then I think for me, like, business to me is part of being active. So I can't not.
Yeah. And so if you're watching and you're thinking about, getting into the business or starting or maybe growing your business or whatever, don't think you can't do it, because you can. If you really want to, you'll find a way. It's just, you got to have that passion and that drive. and Aaron doing what he does plus college pro. I have another gig too, so I'm not. That's an excuse, right? You can do it if you really want to.
It's patience too, right? And it's chapters. I mean, I'm not on the water much either, right? Like, I think that's the thing. There's trade-offs. And when I say I'm not on the water much, like, I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, right? Like I just mentioned it. We're just getting back out. My boat might have seen the water 4 or 5 times last year, which is brutal for me. But there's the trade-offs, right? I think we're trying to build something, and there's trade-offs and there's patience. And this is a chapter that we're in right now, and we're going to try and build a few others and do a few other things in the industry. But there's trade-offs, and I think that's part of it. And part of, unfortunately, in this chapter, trade-off is actually being on the water, which might seem counterintuitive, but it's just the way it is. So you got to be able to make the quote unquote sacrifice or make the trade-offs that you want to be able to be in the position that you're in. So that's been a big part of my world for the last decade.
Yeah. So let's talk about how, when you first got going, and you got the social going first. And at what point did Pro Staff come into play and sponsor people?
Right away. So yeah, right away. It was one of those things we knew that was going to be a good angle based on the industry. I mean, it's one of the only industries, probably other than like fitness, that has the same style of like dynamic in the industry. We also knew it because we hadn't even introduced a product yet, and people were asking about it, and we're like, you don't even know what we do. So there was some learning there beforehand. We're like, okay, we're gonna have to deal with some stuff along the way and be selective and what is this. But we knew there was going to be no avoiding it. So we wanted to embrace it from the beginning. I think a lot of companies fight it based on how it might feel or look or appear or whatever. But we just decided there was going to be no way around it. So we might as well just embrace it from the start.
And what do you look for when you're bringing people on?
Our main, so Ed is one of my good friends. He's our Pro Staff director. He's a great guy. So that's kind of like the scaling piece. We brought him on about 2 years in. It was when, for me, it was 5:30 in the morning, honestly, processing Pro Staff apps. And then once we had more stuff going on, we had some space, we brought somebody in. And, Ed, part of it is we're building a community. So there's different tiers and there's different levels and different ways that we've kind of built it out, but we wanted to keep it really, really simple. And one of the things that we think about is would we want to spend, based on what we can see, would we want to spend a day on the water with this person, with this girl or this guy? I mean, that means they're going to represent the brand well. So like, that's kind of like our, check out their Instagram, read their application. Like, is this the type of person that, like, if I drew them in a tournament, that we'd have a good day? If it's it's like, great. Like, that's part of the community. And then from there, obviously there's different things, because it's really tough, right? We don't feel like social reach is the only thing, because just because somebody doesn't have a great big Instagram following doesn't mean that they're not the most, that they're not the person in their local bass club that everybody goes to learn about what's going on or watches from afar or all those other things. So we know there's like other elements, but again, it's like, if we want, I could grab a beverage with somebody or hit the water with somebody and talk fishing and be there. Like, that's what we want. We decided that we're going to build a community versus, necessarily like sponsoring a whole bunch of other people, and people that are part of our community that share our brand in exchange get a discount. And then based on how much they're able to share it and their reach and who they are, obviously, the Bobby the Bank fisherman, super passionate angler.
Yep.
That's a great fit for us. Seth Fider, currently leading Angler of the Year. AOI, a little bit of a different category, right? So like, that's kind of like where, different ends of the spectrum, but like all still part of the same community, because Bobby Bank Angler and Seth could have a beverage, I'm sure, and talk about fishing for hours. And that's kind of what we've tried to think about it. We don't always get it right, but that's how we've been trying to really think about it.
Yeah, I think Seth can have a beverage with anybody and talk fishing. Right.
I would. Yes, I would validate.
Yeah. So it's getting more competitive too, right? With the people who are applying, and what we see when we teach in our Outdoor Profits Academy is, guys, you got to be professional. You got to treat
Yeah.
it as a job application. And Aaron's a really busy guy, so don't, waste your time or his, and know what you're talking about. Because the video that you did a couple of years ago, maybe, and you can describe that, but I think you know where I'm going, where the guy applied, or the girl, or whatever it was.
Yeah. And there's the thing. Yeah. I think you're talking about when someone's like, hey, like, I love your baits. I'd love to be part of your team. And we're like, we don't make baits.
Right.
Right. Like, it's one of those things where you're like, well, have you used our product? One of our actual questions on our application is, have you used Woo products?
Right.
And it's amazing how many people say no.
Right.
And I said it not as like a negative, but like there's an element of like, how do you say, it's like wanting to promote a restaurant you've never been to.
Yeah.
And when we think about what we're reading, and you and I talked this before, but what we're reading is, I'm basically judging without being judgmental, but we're evaluating what this person's communication and social posts and things are going to be like. It doesn't have to be a soliloquy, but like if sponsorship is spelt wrong, that's, you know what I mean? Like, or if,
kind of a clue.
Kind of a clue as to like what the posts are going to look like and how's the brand going to be represented. And, somebody doesn't have to fish a ton of tournaments. Like I said, it doesn't have to be about that, because honestly, tournament wins, we just talked about it. They're rare, and they don't really hold a lot of water long term.
No.
So what we're looking for is somebody who's going to be a good representation of the brand, somebody which means, like you mentioned, it's almost like a job application. Is somebody going to be professional? Somebody taking the time to fill it out. Like, we get some applications that are a sentence. Again, somebody doesn't have to write us an essay. That's almost bad too. But is it a reasonable response for the question being asked? Is somebody familiar with the products that we use? Is somebody the type of angler who typically fishes with our stuff as well? Those are the types of things that we're looking for. And then, based on how somebody operates and what they're bringing in terms of reach is going to determine, how things are going. We don't think of it as a transactional relationship, but it's a transaction in the sense of like, we're giving discount and honestly exposure, as we post people and do different things with that in exchange for, well-representation of the brand.
Hey, I'm going to click on this here. We got Pete Scholl. I don't know if you know Pete, Aaron. He's Water and Ice Outdoors. Yeah. He's a great kid, and couple little kids. And of course, I call him a kid because I'm older than most people. But he said so many people jump at the first opportunity that comes along, even if they don't like the product.
Yeah, it's because it's often the pro staff world is like it's a status symbol, right? It's trying to get as many. It's almost like, you talk about how many followers can you get on Instagram or whatever. It's like the same type thing of like how many there's badge collectors. And I don't mean that in like again, no judgment. Yeah, but some people like that's what the game is about for them. And honestly, I'm like, some people kind of like crap on those people. I'm like, whatever makes you happy, right? Like whatever makes you happy. But we're not out there. We decline a significant portion of the people that apply. What we do in that case, though, is we actually give them some thoughts as to like what typically is a good application, and invite them to reapply again in 6 months. So it's not, so we try to be good people with it. But I completely agree. There's a lot of people that jump at the first opportunity. That's okay. And what often happens with that is where you get a very shallow brand, because I've seen them before where they're like a button click. Yeah. Right? Like we've gone through, like believe it or not, I'm a pro staff of a bunch of other tungsten companies, right? Like, so I know what they're, as we've watched through and see what's going on and just understand our competition in the industry and all that other stuff. Like there is some of that stuff that we see all the time too.
Yeah. And so we talked about this when we talked a couple of weeks ago, and some of the things that we talk about in our academy are, obviously professionalism, build yourself a professional presentation, a media kit that you can send out to people. And I know that you have your apps and everything, but it puts you a little bit ahead of the pack if you've taken the time to actually organize things and show people your reach and so forth. And then also, using YouTube as a way to get free traffic, actually. But if you tag and you title and you do your descriptions, all of that on YouTube, you're going to get a chance, more viewership. So we teach that. And then also, and here's the big one, is people don't realize the value of an email list, right? It's so hard. It's so easy to build it. And when we talked the other day, it's like, okay, Aaron, if you had an application that had a media kit and they were certified and I also have an X thousand email list, what would that do for that application?
Well, I've never seen someone say they have an email list, right? I think like there's a big difference between posting into the abyss and someone actually having a cultivated list of people that want to know what they're talking about. For me, like if that was me, I'd be like, okay, do you want to do some? I'd be like, do you want to do some content like what we're doing? Like, I'll do some content with you. Do you want to do like what? How can we like the first thing? I guess the way my brain even just works, I'm like, how do we add value? Amazing, you've got a 4,000 person list, an 8,000 person list, a 12, whatever the number is. I'm like, how do we add value to that list? Like, what can we do? You want to do a giveaway for the people on your list? Do you want to do like? I'd be like, let's add value and introduce them to the brand. And like, I'm like, that's a whole nother layer. That's a whole nother layer of it for sure. And I think the other thing with YouTube is that lasts forever. So we got a video. I did a video in my backyard like 6 years ago, how to put new line on a spinning reel, and it still gets,
totally.
So it's kind of, it continues to carry as well. So that's also the thing. Well, why you want to be professional? Because it does. I mean, I guess you can delete it, but it does live, right? Like that stuff does carry on and live out too.
We call it evergreen, right? It just keeps rolling. And what kind of is like nails on a chalkboard to us is people will post a video, great video, but no tags, no research on the description, and the title is not a title that somebody would actually punch into YouTube to search on, right? So you got to pay attention to those things to make that video, have some life, for a long, long time. Right?
Yeah, that video I'm talking about says how to put new line on a fishing reel, I think is what it says. But I'm like, that's what somebody's going to type in, and that video I think is just over 4 million views, which is insane to me. But that means that's something that people are challenged with, and they found something. And exactly.
If I'm a creator and if I'm a person, who's out there and a fisherman, what I would do is I would just tweak that title just a little bit. I would do another video based on that same sort of concept, and then I would try to ride shotgun or whatever the term is, because you'll get views based on that video as well. The whole thing is all the stuff that we talk about.
It's fantastic. It's huge, right? I think you got to reverse engineer it. Is basically what you're saying. Right. Exactly. I'm like, and the same, honestly, same thing with like Pro Staff and our whole brand. I'm like, I'm an angler. Like, what do I like? Like, I can't go make something I don't like. I mean, I look at my desk right now. I got a old shot glass full of just junk. Right. So it's kind of like the same style of like, these are all the different, I don't know, nail weights and just sample things and stuff we've messed around with. But like, it's all trying to reverse engineer what we're trying to do. And that's what that YouTube thing example that you're talking about is as well. Right. Like, you're just trying to go, what's something going to search? How am I going to make it a valuable video for them? Not how am I going to share my, wealth of knowledge with the world, but like, how am I going to package it in a way that other people want to see? Yeah. And that's where it works.
And you don't have to be Steven Spielberg either. I mean, you don't have to be. It's just take a little time to do a little bit of research and what other people are doing, and then get your tags right, get your description right. And that video it'll definitely live on. In fact, if it's less produced, it's probably better, actually, right?
Way better. It's actually way better.
Yeah. So do you think that the social and the rise of social in the last 5 years, you think your company has sort of, I think it's benefited from that, but do you think that's, a big reason why you've grown so much? I know you've got great product. Okay. That's a given.
That's table stakes though, right? Like, so I think for us, timing was phenomenal, right? Like I think, 5 years ago, Instagram was different than it is now. Totally. And, so there's a lot of diluted situations that are out there right now that we were able to deal with a lot earlier. For sure, social media is massive, right? Like we ran a really big. So we exhibited at the Classic last year.
Yep.
We ran a giant sale at the Classic, and it was busy. Like, it was awesome. It was super cool. But we ran an online sale at the same time through social, and we did 4 times the volume.
Yeah.
Without so if we were, you know what I mean? So if we weren't even there, like, put in time, and the booth was amazing, and it was great to talk to so many people that I'd never met, and it's really actually we realized what that was, is it was actually made the brand physical. Like, there was like a physical, tangible thing with the brand more than it was sales. I don't even know if I'd bring something to sell next time. We'll see. But yeah, it's the difference.
Is that last year was the giveaway, right? With the ride in?
Yeah, that was really cool last year.
Talk about that. I thought that was way cool. So that's worth discussing.
Yeah, we did. So with Seth, we did, called it freeloading with Fighter, and it was a chance to, ride through, jump in the truck, and ride through the Classic weigh-in on the final day. So it was fun. Like, we were able to get, a young guy, he won, and loaded him up with some gear and took him to the boatyard. And that's, again, when we talk about fun, right? Like, that was a blast for me, right? Like, to be able to put a guy and his dad, he's about 12, and his dad, and in the back of the truck, and they jumped in and had a chance to chat with Fighter and be in the boatyard and take some pictures and see all the other boats and all the other guys back there, and then jump in the truck and ride through the Classic way. And I mean, it was super cool.
Think about what that meeting with Kevin Van Dam did for you when you're about that age, right? So you probably just changed that kid's life in a dramatic way, I would think. Yeah,
I think that's why we do it, though, too, right? Like, as I said, we sell little pieces of metal, but there's all those other things are just so much more to it than anything else. I mean, as I said, I have those experiences because I like it and what we do, and it's a big part of my life, and that's why we run these things and run the whole piece, because it's just that great. And I get a chance to talk to one of my best friends weekly about something else. Like, there's a lot of really good things that are there beyond just selling a piece of metal.
Yeah. And last year you had to kind of grind through it, as everybody did, right? Because, things went crazy. We all know that. How did that affect what you guys were doing, and, how'd you overcome it?
Yeah, honestly, it was a great year for us. And I say that it wasn't an easy year. I mean, everybody fished. So if someone's running a business in the fishing industry and didn't do well last year, big problem. Like, it was there. So I think that was a big piece. Inventory was really tough last year. Timing of everything was really tough. There's a lot of uncertainty. We doubled down on inventory. We went, inventory's tough to get. Let's triple it. Let's get, it's not going to go bad, where a lot of other people went, we're going to hold tight. So when things were tough, and people were going crazy with it, we had inventory to fulfill, which meant we picked up a ton of retailers, because retailers couldn't get inventory that they were used to being able to get. So inventory won the day last year. So that was interesting, but cash flow challenges with that. I'm north of the border. I haven't been able to be in the U.S. since the last time I've been was in the U.S. was the Classic in March of 2020. Right. So we talk about guys like Seth and being at events and all these other things. Like, honestly, the angler, the last term of the year, the angler of the year is probably gonna be awarded 4 or 5 hours from my house. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to be there. Yeah, which is crazy, right? So I think some of those relationships, we just talk about having a beverage and chatting fishing. Like, that's such a big piece of it, and that's been to a complete zero over the last while. And we've just had to make some decisions with cash. As I said, we're trying to grow, but you want to spend marketing dollars, but we're an inventory business, and there's just some conflicts internally with some of those things. When I say that, between inventory and cash flow and marketing and where you want to go, but not being able to get there, it was a really weird year. I think for a lot of people, obviously business did well. Yeah. But it became a lot more about being at the computer and the desk than a lot of those other things that were why we started it. But we'll get back to it. I mean, it's just a chapter. We'll keep chugging along. But it was a good business year last year, but it was not. It had to be navigated, is how I would describe it. Yeah, I love that term, chapters. I like the way you talk about that. So speaking of chapter, the rest of this year into 2022, can you talk about what you have cooking and Yeah. Honestly, a bunch. So we'll actually have tube jig heads launch in about a month. So tube heads. So that'll be cool. We got a few products. So I've been working on a Tokyo rig for a while.
Oh, really?
It's been really tough, if I'm being honest. I don't, talk about stuff that's like split ring pliers on my desk and all sorts of just different stuff. I want to put an O-ring, like a thicker O-ring in there, so that if the hook bends out, or you don't have to throw the whole thing out, or if someone doesn't like a gammy, they can change it out or whatever.
Sure.
So just trying to play with some of that. Trying to do so we have the hook designed. It's finished, the EWG Ned. So we're going to take our Ned and move that into an EWG, but we just talked about timelines, right? So obviously we make all of that stuff is made overseas. So the hook manufacturer, so we use gammy hooks, takes 6 or 8 months to get that done. And then once they get them over, we're probably another 3 or 4 months to finish that out. So it's probably a year from now, which is crazy to think, right? Like if we start it today, it's probably next June. But the way we think about it, it's crazy. If we don't have something by May, it's useless. It's for the next year. So there's a lot of stuff like that that's playing around. Probably have a swim bait head likely by the fall, likely. So yeah, we're trying to add some products, but again, it's a cash flow, situation, right?
Yeah.
Bringing in a new product means more inventory. So we're trying to grow within our cash restraints as a business. We're trying to grow smart, and that's what we're trying to do. So we've got a bunch of things that are in place right now that we're being smart, and we're saving our money, and we're spending it on on inventory. So we've got a bunch that we want to do, but there's for sure, like the tube heads are done, manufacturing's done. They actually shipped. I think they started shipping actually today. So we should have those in our warehouse in a couple weeks, and then be able to launch that, and then just kind of keep working through the list as we go. So I don't know. Some of that's exciting. Some of it for us, some of it's not overall. But it's just iterations, I guess, right? Like just continuing to iterate and work on it, and a bit of a website maybe redesign too. Nothing crazy, but we've really worked hard on our checkout process. Again, which is we talk about like just leave it as it is, but we're trying to like kind of work through some of these things and continue to make it a bit more efficient.
Work on that cart value, right?
Yeah, cart value is huge, and carts today are different than they were a few years ago. And e-commerce has always been a big, has grown, take it, but there's a wave that they're calling m-commerce, which is the mobile commerce situation. So just trying to make sure that as that continues, that a lot of our stuff is more mobile friendly, and how does that work? And we've kicked around ideas of turning our site into an app, so that there's an app because it's mobile, and can somebody get into the app and stuff like that. And then again, it's where do you spend your time and energy? It's always the decision. So it's like, do we go down and finish the Tokyo rig, or do we turn the site more into an app where it's still a site, but somebody could have an app where they can navigate through that and try and be we're on, as I said, front edge. I don't want to say the front edge of Instagram. I don't have the audacity to say we invented that model, if you will. But 5 years ago, building an Instagram community was a lot easier, and I think we're going to start to see that on mobile commerce. So we're looking for people in terms of like our community that fit that, but also just trying to build it, like get our business ready for something that could be here in 2 or 3 years, differently, more than just products. So it's kind of what we're working on. And I'm going to try and catch a giant this year, if I'm being honest. There's a few 8-pound smallmouth kicking. I live right by Lake Simcoe. So this fall, I only got it once last fall, which was brutal.
Yeah.
But the weather here was also horrible all last fall. It's just a beast of a body of water. But I have a friend who got an 8 last year and had 4 over 7. So they're growing. So we got a bunch of stuff going on. But in the last half of the year, I'm going to take a couple shots at an 8 if I can find them. Yeah.
So in other words, you're really not that busy.
No, just a few things. We had a 3rd kid coming in August too, by the way. So it's so we'll add another kid.
That's amazing.
Just add another kid and some product lines, and just keep on building, I guess, right? That's basically what we're saying. We just keep on building away. So
yeah, well, so I've got my first Goliath grouper that got that in March, so awesome. I can check that one off. It wasn't really big, but hey, it was, so I can say I caught one. So, and then it's
all relative.
People really close to the family about this time last week, black marlin in Cabo.
Oh, cool.
Totally cool. On the list for me again now. So, I got to go see I catch one too, so I can't get, kind of dogged by this person. So,
Well, it's funny. In our house, my wife's got she's number one on the leaderboard. She got an 812 largemouth a few years ago, I guess. Actually fishing with Chris. We were fishing there with Chris and when he lived in Florida, on Okeechobee, and she got an absolute spawned out beast. Crazy how big its body was. So his biggest body of largemouth I mean by far that I'd ever seen. So very, very cool. But I'll see if I can get myself into that 8-pound category this year. I think they're there.
I'm only a little bit over 6. That's mine. So, and it was kind of an accident, but another long story. But let me ask you this. Okay, so I love asking this question to everybody that I talk to, and it's the one setup question. Okay, so the question is, if you had only one setup, Aaron, where you had a rod, a reel, the line, the bait, whatever. One setup to catch the most fish, where if you had to go around to a bunch of different lakes and you had to make sure that thing could catch fish, what is it?
I'm going to throw a swim bait, and I'm going to throw it on a 7.5. So I'd probably go like a 7+ foot. There's a few options, but like 7.3 medium heavy spinning rod. I probably wouldn't go spinning rod very often, but I'm probably going to go 15-pound braid and 10-pound fluoro, because I can throw that. I'm probably not going to love that on a bright sunny day, but I can wind that. At least I can bring that. I can get that swim bait a really long way with a longer rod.
Right.
And if I had to cover some ground, if it was gin clear like it is here, you see 20 feet down on a sunny day, I can get it a long way away from the boat. I can slow roll it. I could burn it on a foot of water on the flat. I could slow roll that down the side of a weed bed, but I got enough rod and line to be able to get that fish out. So that would probably be it for me. It probably wouldn't be ideal, but if I had to make one setup work for the rest of the time, that's what it would be. I'd probably in the clear water, I'd wish I had a lighter leader. If I was in the other water, I'd probably wish I was throwing on a bait caster with a bit heavier line. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably go like a 7.3 medium heavy, half ounce jig head with a swimmer, 15-pound line so I can fire it a long way, 10-pound leader. So at least I've got something there to help me out with weight and a little bit of finesse where I need it. I'm going to throw it as far as I possibly can every single time.
The reel?
Reel. I fish a lot of Abu, so I'd probably fish it Abu Revo. Probably fish the Abu Revo, and then I use a slightly bigger reel. Actually, I use like a 3000 instead of like the 2000 sizes. A little bit bigger. I can cast it a lot further, I think, with the bigger surface on the spool. I also pick up line a lot faster too. So sometimes I get 5-pound smallmouth, eat a swimmer, you might come at me, and I gotta catch them. So that's kind of the way. It's the way I would roll. If I had to, that's what I would roll with.
Yeah, that's always it's a great answer, and it's always a little different no matter who I talk to, especially the people like in your neck of the woods versus somebody down in the the Panhandle or in the Keys or whatever. They're obviously going to do something different. But I love asking that question.
I got areas where I can fish shallow rock, or even call it 15 feet of water and rock and see the bottom, and then be within a mile and go flip a weed bed. Right. So I got to be able to have something you can do a whole bunch of different stuff with. Right.
Well, hey, Aaron, you know what? This has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on with us. And I know, we've never met, but I know we will. But
we will.
When I made the connection request or reached out to you, you were gracious and you got back to me. And I think that basically talks to what kind of a person you are too. So
I appreciate it.
We appreciate you being on with us, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of the cast and look forward to the next one. We'll announce it soon. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.